Well, here we are, round 4. Well, Jack and Ben actually finished, so the two fast guys are slow and the two slow guys are fast. So, how are we doing?
Yeah, 3-1, just won that one. Played against another red-black burn deck. I honestly thought if I got them today, it would be a buy for them, but Leyline's doing some work, so...
And yourself, Ben?
Yeah, 3-1, just played against blue-white-red for the second time. This time I won, so yeah, can't complain.
Let's talk a little bit about your deck and its matchup then against this blue-white-red.
Game 1, hope to get Birthing Pod down before they have a counterspell available. And then games 2 and 3, you really just have to grind them out. And if they give you a window of opportunity like my round 4 opponent did, stick down Birthing Pod. And then play Thrun as well, just to really annoy them. So yeah, can't complain.
What do you think about this kind of matchup then, with the blue-white-red decks against the Pod?
Right, I think it's really good for Pod. Like say, the key card is Birthing Pod, but I think the fact that you've got 4 Restoration Angel and you've got such mana ramp can go a long way in that matchup from what I can tell from testing. And yeah, like if you've got access to cards like Sagada and Thrun and sideboard, which they just can't deal with. So it feels like was it blue-white-red control or mid-range?
It was mid-range. You played Geist to Saint Draft, so
yeah, it feels like that version is just horrible against Pod because they shouldn't be able to connect more than once with a Geist or get the damage through, because that's the only way they win. They have to get damage through. That's how their deck wins.
And that's always the spot to get your Pod down, isn't it, when they drop the Geist?
Because I've played blue-white a lot, and you do sometimes have to take that risk of just slamming that Geist, and then if they've got their best spell, you've just got to hope you can beat that in time, and if they don't, you win. It's as simple as that most of the time with Geist in draft, in any format.
So let's talk about any interesting plays that happened in those games, or was it all pretty standard stuff?
It was pretty standard stuff. Like game 1, I comboed out, and then game 2, I got thrown down. He was so sure the game was over that I was just going to grind him down with Thrun. He was trying to burn me off, so he left 1 blue up, and I then played Phantasmal Image, copying his Snapcaster Mage, pod away Phantasmal Image, fetch, see Rexile, pod away Thrun, get a Kiki, kill you. Because he just let his guard down, and you just can't afford to do that in Magic.
So, we talk a lot about how people make these simple errors, and this was really one of the reasons why we wanted to get some players down and we wanted to chat with them. Because the general consensus, we had at the end of the video, what you guys wouldn't have seen, was a bit of a slagging off session of all the various players and how they're not really as good. Matt Light's joining us now, and he gets the last seat. So, Matt, we're just actually coming up to the really interesting point we were talking about. One of the reasons we were making this video and these set of videos is that, well, you know, people aren't just as good as Magic as they think they are anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I would say it's the same thing as you get with it's the poker statistics, isn't it? Isn't it something like 75% of poker players think they're in the top 25% of poker players? And I think you get that with Magic a lot. I think people think they're a lot better than they are, because I think that the UK has lots of different play groups that are very isolated, and communication getting better a little bit through time, but they're still very insular. So if you're the best player in your area, you consider yourself to be one of the better players, and then you move somewhere else, and it's just not necessarily the case. I mean, I came from rural Lincolnshire, so obviously I was the best player in rural Lincolnshire because it's rural Lincolnshire. And then I moved to Nottingham with like Tom Hull, Neil, and suddenly you realise that there's this massive difference. And I think that everyone can learn from everyone else a lot, but people don't necessarily take the opportunities to do so. And I think that's quite big.
And of course, one of the interesting things is that there's no real long term in Magic. Like, you can do all the best testing, but the seasons are over so short that you never actually know whether what you have done is the correct thing.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that if someone said to me, right, Matt, I'm willing to put as much time into this as I can, or as you expect of me, just give me some information, tell me what to do, tell me how much I need to test, what I need to test against, I think that you can get that person to win a PTQ. I think the problem is that this game's vast and difficult and deep, and people don't give it the respect it deserves. So for the players like us three here, I mean, we can get away with picking up a deck, playing it a little bit for a week, and then maybe top 8, maybe if it's luck's on our side and we play really tight, win. But other people just can't do that. Like, the people that picked up their deck yesterday need so much luck to win this PTQ, especially if they're not one of the better players. And I think that people don't give themselves every opportunity. So, like I was saying to Rob Wagner earlier, back when we were winning PTQs a couple of years ago, it was because we were playing all the time. And we were playing all the time like together with people of comparable ability. And I don't think people really do that anymore. They play their F&Ms, they sort of play like once or twice a week maybe with their buddies, and that's it. And I mean, if you look at the people that are really wanting to win the PTQ, they're not at F&M. They're on Magic Online or on sort of a cockatrice variant or testing with one specific person on Friday night because they're doing it to get results rather than to... People confuse testing and preparing with just sitting down and playing Magic, and they're two very different things. So I think that basically people go about things wrongly, and you can get there with time and effort, and people just don't put time and effort in. Okay. It's that simple.
Somebody pays you some money. Let's say somebody pays you some nominal amount of money and says, I want to be the best player for the next season. Yeah. What are you going to do to that guy? Like, what is the course of action what's this sort of plan you're going to give him then?
I would say it starts off with identifying the format. So you want to read everything you can about the format. An issue with so many Grand Prix now and sort of pro meta games is that the pros aren't writing about the PTQ seasons anymore as consistently. They're just talking about their tournament reports and stuff.
Well, do you remember the last WMCQs that happened, particularly the one in America? LSV won the one on the West Coast, I believe. Yeah. Now, you'll notice that it was a Star City Games article after he'd won that WMCQ telling people how he won that WMCQ and why he adjusted his Delver deck accordingly. But people don't want that. The information people want is to be able to turn up to that WMCQ. So the pros know full well they can't give away this information, even though they're being paid to give away this information. So you have to go out and make that information yourself, don't you? You have to find it out for yourself. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's a degree of that. I think there's two ways you can go about winning a tournament, like a PTQ, a WMCQ. It's a little bit different for Grand Prix and it's vastly different for Pro Tours. There's two ways. The first way is you innovate, you invent something new, you have something that no one else has. That
it's next to impossible now.
It's so difficult because, like you're saying, there's so much information. I mean, and which is going to be like my first point about what I would do and tell that person to do. The second way is to have the correct deck for the day. So, for example, the first PTQ I won, I was playing. It was in 2007, 2006. I was playing Old Extended. I was playing Ad Nauseam. Tendrils Storm, and I turned up and I just destroyed everyone because everyone was totally unprepared. People in the UK at that point didn't respect and test against combo decks enough, so I just easily beat everyone. It was possibly one of the easiest tournaments I've ever played in hindsight. And so if you have the right deck, you can just monster the room.
It feels easy, doesn't it? When you've got the best deck in the room and you know it, it feels like people just in your way to that trophy. It's not like it's not like you're trying to get it. It's like you just need to push them to the side just to get it. Like
all the PTQs I've won, I felt like I was winning the tournament every round. Yeah. Like I was. So you play against someone in the top 8, and you're like, well, I have to win this one to get to the final. Yeah. It's not I have to win this or this is the semi-final. This is like you say. It's just.
They're just in the way.
Yeah.
I haven't won a PTQ yet, but I made top 4 one with a Tezzeret deck, which in hindsight was not a great deck, but on the day it was amazing. And I crushed everybody with it. It felt like I couldn't lose a game of Magic, and I only lost to a mirror match, which I would never expect in that format. This was a Delver format, and I got a Tezzeret mirror in the semis, and it feels like I can beat any other deck in the entire format apart from that. So it does, yeah.
And that deck won, didn't it? The guy you lost to won.
That deck won that day because it was the right deck for that day. But a week later, it's awful. So it's like you say, it's the right deck for the right day.
Yeah. So I think,
in all fairness, that PTQ was incredibly soft.
Yeah.
10 of the best Magic players in the country weren't there because Neil Rigby decided to get married.
Yeah, it's true. That was Neil Rigby's wedding.
So
kind of had to attend that.
So although
I was late.
So although preparation and the right deck on the day is there, sometimes it's also the fact that the best players aren't there. You get days where the event is just soft. Like today is very soft. Today is an incredibly soft PTQ. It's huge, but the ringers aren't here. Like the end bosses aren't here. So there aren't people that you just go, yeah, they'll top 8. That's not hugely happening. Anyway, back onto the point that got derailed a little bit. Identify the format. So like I was saying before and about how I identified Electrolytes and Khan as the pillars of the format, you have to do that. For example, the Magic Online daily events
every day there is a set of deck lists for what's winning on Magic Online for this format. So, for example, I've read that every day for the last 2 weeks, possibly all season. In this room, maybe 20 people have done that. And that's ludicrous. I mean, you wouldn't turn up to an exam without revising.
Yeah, it's just free information.
Yeah, and
No excuse.
so, for example, the deck I'm playing today is the best performing deck on Magic Online by some degree in the last week. So every single person should know about it. But they don't. And that's unacceptable. And after that, just play. Play as much Magic as you possibly can against the best people you can. So in an ideal world, if I wanted to win a PTQ, I would play at least 2 hours a day, every day. Ideally, I would play 8.
Now we've got time's just been called on around, so we've got about 5 minutes. How important is it to not only play your own deck, but play every other deck against your deck, so you can see how they all act?
I think that's more important than playing your own deck by absolutely miles, because the worst thing you want to happen is be playing really hot but haven't got a clue what your opponent's doing. Yeah. Because you can play hot and play hot to a certain situation, but it may be the wrong situation to play hot. So I would, I don't know about yourself, but whenever I test, I always, once I've picked a deck, I'll make 80% of my time just playing the other decks, just so I know what they want to do to beat me. So then I know how not to lose.
And you know there's a good pilot as well.
Yeah.
I think that the more you play and the more you have played, the less you have to do that. Because, so for example, I know what the red deck or what the Splinter Twin deck's going to do. Because things, once you've played lots of decks in the format, like I think I've played every deck in this format probably at some point. And like, so the thing I think, when you go into a tournament, the first thing you should know, and some people don't know, is your exact 75. You should be able to say that from memory. And then secondly, what you should be able to do is when your opponent goes turn 1, Arid Mesa, crack it, get X dual land, you should be able to go, right, that means he's one of these 3 decks, X, Y, Z. And then he goes, next turn, make this land, maybe this spell. Then you go, right, so it's not X, it's Y or Z. And then as soon as you've identified that it's Y or Z, you should be able to call up sort of a stock list to mind. So you should immediately know what things to play around and play against. And people just don't do that. So earlier, a friend of mine playing the same deck I'm playing made a really trivial error. His opponent ran out a naked Snapcaster in the Split and Twin matchup, and he didn't want to be ground out by incremental damage like that, so he leaked it in his end step, thinking, what can that deck do on his main phase with 3 mana that I care about? And his opponent untapped and Blood Mooned him and essentially won the game. And the thing is with that is actually, if you really look at it, it's just it's a very good decision. It's a very intelligent decision based on the information that you have. Yeah. But if you don't have complete information, all of your best decisions are nonsense because they will just lose you the game. And that's really heartbreaking, is seeing good players lose because they weren't playing around something they should know about.
No, yeah, you completely right. You see it all the time. It's good players you've had to pick up a deck because they might have family or career commitments, and you hate watching it because you know they're better than it, and they make that play, and in their head and in a bubble is the perfect play. Yeah. But when you know everything, when you're outside that bubble, it's horrific. It's worse than doing nothing sometimes.
They're adding 3+3 and they're getting 6, but it turns out there was another 2 somewhere and they should have got 8. And and they're just, and the thing's it's those errors that lose you in a big tournament, like an 8-round tournament. You get 1 life.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Because you'll probably lose a match to variance, them drawing well, you're drawing badly, mana screw, mana flood, all these things that can go wrong in Magic. And if you have 1 life, and that 1 life is your precious 1 life, where you have to play tight so that you can afford your 1 life loss to be the flood screw game. And as soon as you make that error, you lose your life, which means you have to be so much luckier. And things, people do get lucky. I mean, lots of people get really lucky and win PTQs. But like, you can't, you have to play tight. And the problem is when people are, like you're saying, when they're running hot, they're like playing hot, but you just don't, you're not in a situation to capitalize on it.
Yeah, you've got to make the most of it, I think.
So we're going to have to wrap things up, obviously, as the round's coming to an end. Ben, you're 3-1. Jack, you're 3-1. Matt, you seem to think you're crushing everyone.
I'm 4-0. I played against a Kiki Pod combo deck. I was really excited.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, when everyone was like, why have you played against combo decks, Matt? Quite excited to play against combo decks. He nearly beat me, and then it turned out that I was much more in control of the game than I originally thought.
Now, Jack's big thing is that the tournament only really starts about round 5 or 6. Yeah.
In my opinion, these tournaments don't start till now, basically, through the halfway point, because you get all the scrubs and the people who've got unlucky/lucky early, and then this is where you get the good players come through.
I think sometimes though you get like actual players up until this point. So like my last 2 rounds were Levi Hines, who's top hitted all the PTQs, and I just played Mark McGovern. So like it's been more difficult, but yeah, definitely. But things is you get tournaments where you go 6-0 and you play against Dribbly McMongo 6 times and you beat him up. And
it does happen. Like sometimes you just go to a PTQ and like you say you are 6-0 and you're like, oh, I might as well play this match, and you'll get some guy who's playing like mono red, hasn't got a clue what he's doing, but he's just won because he's drew like 4 bolts in a row.
He's drawn 3 lands.
Yeah, each
and
bolt.
spells.
Yeah, that's all he's done, and it can happen. That's
one of the great things about Magic, isn't it? But is that for that guy, this tournament's amazing. He's really excited, and like that variance is there, but.
It's going to happen now. Yeah. Said that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jinxed it.
Anyway, we'll
get destroyed by mono.
we'll hopefully pick up things at the end of the next round, and you both will be 4-1, and Matt will be 5-0.